Learn Japanese history.
We are your navigators, Taro and Hanako.
Welcome. So you're starting your journey into Japanese history as a university student here. That's fantastic.
It really is. And we think this deep dive is going to be pretty essential for you.
Yeah, think of it as laying some important groundwork. We're looking at a period that really sets the stage for a lot of what comes later.
Exactly. Today, we're digging into a major shift in Japan's political structures. We'll be exploring the rise of the Insei, you might hear it called, cloistered government.
Right, and alongside that, the emergence of the really powerful Taira clan.
Understanding this period is just foundational, honestly, because it flows directly into the age of the samurai. It influences everything.
Okay, so let's start with the Insei system itself.
Yeah.
Before this, my understanding is the emperor held quite a bit of direct political power.
Generally, yes, although often influenced by powerful families.
So what exactly was the Insei? Why did it even come about?
Well, what's really interesting, I think, is how innovative it was. It wasn't like anything seen before, really.
Okay.
Essentially, you had an emperor who would abdicate the throne, right?
Yeah.
Pass it on to a successor, often someone quite young.
Uh-huh.
But, and this is the key bit, the abdicated emperor didn't just retire. They continued to wield significant political power sort of behind the scenes.
From behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Often from within a monastery, wasn't it? That's the cloistered part.
Exactly.
Right.
Operating from, say, a Buddhist monastery setting gave them a certain distance, perhaps, from the formal court.
So an emperor steps down but keeps pulling the strings. That sounds, well, pretty unconventional.
It definitely was.
What was going on politically that would lead to such a system? Were there specific tensions?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question, because it wasn't created in a vacuum. For centuries, the Fujiwara clan had become incredibly powerful.
Right, they often dominated the court, marrying their daughters to emperors.
Precisely. They effectively controlled many reigning emperors. So the Insei, you could argue, is partly a strategy.
A strategy by the emperors.
Yes, a way for emperors to try and break free from that Fujiwara control, to reassert their own authority, just indirectly.
Ah, okay. A kind of political workaround.
You could put it like that. But it's important to note, this circumvention of the formal structures, while maybe boosting imperial power short-term, also kind of weakened the traditional court system over time. It set a precedent for power operating outside the rules, you know.
Interesting point. A strategic move, then. By formally abdicating, the retired emperor gets, what, more freedom? They can operate outside the rigid court protocols, maybe avoid the Fujiwara's constant gaze.
That seems to be a big part of it, yeah. It gave them more room to maneuver politically.
And did it work? Was this new system actually successful in shifting that power balance away from the Fujiwara?
For a period, yes, it proved quite effective. You have to remember, these retired emperors, even though they weren't on the throne, often had immense personal influence. They could issue their own directives, appoint their own people to positions, basically guide policy from their cloistered position. So in some ways, it actually consolidated imperial authority just through this new mechanism.
But its success probably varied, right? Depending on the specific retired emperor, their personality, their political skill.
Definitely. It wasn't a guaranteed success, but it was a significant new force in politics.
Okay, that clarifies the Insei system quite a bit. So we have these retired emperors wielding power. Now, where did the Taira clan fit into all this?
Ah, the Taira. Their rise is sort of happening in parallel, and it's just as crucial.
Were they part of the Insei structure or something separate?
Well, they intersected with it. While the Insei was this internal shift within the imperial system, the Taira represented a new kind of power.
New how?
Power based fundamentally on military strength. They were a warrior clan, a very formidable one, and they steadily gained influence at court. Often they'd align themselves with the retired emperors.
Okay, so their power wasn't primarily from, say, ancient noble bloodlines or traditional court rank in the same way as the Fujiwara. It was more about their ability to command warriors.
That was a huge part of it, yes.
Yeah.
Their military capacity was key.
So how did they climb so high? How did they become so prominent? What were the key steps?
It was a mix of things. Military service, absolutely. They gained a lot of recognition for putting down rebellions, keeping order, that sort of thing.
Useful skills for the court to have access to, I imagine.
Extremely useful. But there's another angle, and it's really important.
Which is?
Their economic activity, particularly maritime trade.
Trade. That's maybe not what you first associate with a warrior clan.
Perhaps not. But they were very active. They controlled key ports and got heavily involved in overseas trade, especially with Song Dynasty China.
Really? What kind of things were they trading?
Well, they were exporting Japanese commodities like gold dust, sulfur, even mercury.
Okay. And what were they bringing in?
Really valuable stuff. Things like Song Dynasty coins, which were vital for Japan's own developing money economy, but also medicines, various fragrances, high-end textiles.
Textiles like silk.
Silk, definitely, but also hemp fabrics. And interestingly, they even imported weapons, swords, armor, things like that.
Wow. So they weren't just warriors, they were almost warrior merchants, wielding military power and economic clout through trade.
That's a great way to put it. And that combination gave them a really unique and powerful base. It wasn't just about land ownership anymore, which was the traditional source of wealth and power.
Yeah, that sounds like a major shift in itself.
It absolutely was. This blend of military skill and economic strength set them apart. It allowed them to gain serious leverage, often within that Insei system we talked about.
So they became major players, competing with the old guard, the traditional aristocratic families.
Exactly, competing with families whose power came from lineage and court connections, and also competing with other rising warrior families too. It was a complex, shifting landscape.
Okay, so let's just sort of step back. We've got this fascinating picture. Retired emperors pulling strings from monasteries and powerful warrior clans like the Taira rising up, strong not just militarily but also economically through trade. It feels like a real shakeup of the old order.
It's precisely that, a pivotal transition. The long-held dominance of the court aristocracy was definitely being challenged by these new power dynamics.
And you can almost see, it feels like this new setup with retired emperors and powerful warrior families bumping up against each other in the old court. It could easily lead to more instability down the line, couldn't it? Maybe even conflict.
That potential was certainly there. And it's worth remembering that the Insei system itself, this idea of an abdicated emperor still holding sway, was kind of a patch, wasn't it? A unique adaptation.
Yeah, not the standard operating procedure.
Not at all, but it became hugely influential for a time.
And the Taira, getting powerful through battles and controlling trade routes, it really paints a picture of a changing Japan, a Japan where military strength and economic activity were becoming much more central.
It's a definite shift away from the image of power being solely concentrated within the formal imperial court, like in earlier periods.
And if we look ahead, you can really see the early seeds of what becomes samurai dominance being planted right here, can't you?
Absolutely. The rise of families like the Taira clearly shows the growing importance of military power in Japanese society and politics. It's laying the groundwork.
Okay, so just to recap for you listening, we've seen this move away from direct imperial rule with the Insei system retired emperors still calling a lot of the shots.
Right. And at the same time, you have warrior families like the Taira coming up.
Coming up strong, not just because they had soldiers, but because they were involved in trade, exporting gold, sulfur, mercury.
And importing vital goods like song coins, medicines, nice textiles, even weapons like swords and armor.
So the Insei was this novel way for the imperial line to keep its hand in, while the Taira carved out this unique power base through both might and money.
Which leads us to a final thought for you.
Yeah.
Something to mull over as you continue your studies.
Yeah, think about this. Given this rise of the Insei system and these powerful warrior merchant families at the Taira, what kinds of challenges, what potential problems could this new power dynamic create?
How might it affect the traditional imperial court? And what might it mean for the future direction of Japan? Really consider how these changes we've discussed might be setting the stage for even bigger transformations later in Japanese history.